Chapter 10. Ryan. So yeah, it was another shitty Friday afternoon. I got wild on the way home. How would that Brittany chick feel if Ash and Vince started laying into her because their friend had gone running out into the road? I was having to take all the crap. Then I remembered Brittany almost bawling, and I thought of the other girl lying unconscious in hospital while we ate and walked and talked. Everything I'd been thinking seemed to shrink all of a sudden. I did 30 minutes with the punch bag, my spinning reverse kicks reaching higher and higher. Then Vince rang. He'd been doing some job for his old man at the car yard, and he wanted to know if I'd like a couple of hours' work there tomorrow. I hesitated, then I said yeah. Just before tea, victim support rang. Mr. Gower asked us to tell you that Tara is no longer being sedated. For maybe 3 seconds, I thought they were pulling the plug on her, turning off life support. I hunched over the phone. Then I realised the woman was telling me it was so the doctors could do more tests. So she's getting better, I blurted out. The voice at the other end was careful. I can't really comment on that. I slept on and off through Friday night, the 9th night since it happened. After breakfast on Saturday, John and Mum and I sat and tried to make sense of things. Mr. Non-Event never did that. He was always flashing off somewhere. I suppose I've got to hand it to John. We talked about school and how getting stuck into my subjects helped. Yeah, they'd noticed. About TKD and Ash and Vince and working for Vince's dad. Might be able to get you a bit too, John said, rubbing his even stubblier chin. There was a pause. Mum and my stepfather glanced at each other. He gave her a nod. Mum hesitated, then turned to me. I found this magazine article on another girl who had a head injury, she said. I don't know if you want to read it, love. It's pretty heavy, but it might help you understand what Tara could be facing. I took the magazine from her and held it like it might explode. As sedation wore off, careful monitoring of the patient continued. Her heart, kidneys and blood pressure all seemed normal. Her pupils were checked regularly. Their unsedated response to light would be the first measure of any brain damage. Ryan. In my room, I read the article. This girl had sneaked out to a party and her boyfriend crashed his car. 2 years after she got out of hospital, she was still having headaches so bad they made her sick. She couldn't smile properly or pronounce some words. She couldn't learn things the way she could before. She lost her temper for no reason. She was still having to see doctors, physios, counsellors, therapists. When I'd finished, I just lay on my bed and felt tired. I wanted to help, but could I? Would it take the rest of my life? I didn't think I could handle this. There was a knock on my door and Mum came in. She sat down beside me and held my hand. I'm sorry, love. John and I thought you should know. She smoothed the hair back off my forehead, and I thought for a second I was going to bawl again. I'll ring tomorrow, she said. I'll ask about you seeing Tara's mum then. Tara. A brightness. No, just less darkness. Very far away I could hear noises. Someone pinched me again. I opened one eye. Or something opened it. More brightness, swimmy and blurry. I was somewhere different. Something had happened to me. Ryan. Vince and I spent Saturday afternoon washing cars in his father's yard. We hosed them down, vacuumed and waxed them, put paper mats on the floors, painted black stuff on the outside of the tyres. Vince kept looking as if he was going to say something, but he didn't. I wasn't going to make it easy for him, so we spent most of the time being a pair of black holes. Again, I pictured the girl lying in hospital, not moving while I bent and turned. How much would I face up to, if it could make her all right? Would I stick my leg out and let a car run over it? Would I lie down and let... It was no good thinking that way. I realised Vince was talking. You want to come round tonight? Ash and I got some more DVDs. I took a second to clear my throat, then, okay, I told him. Vince's whole face seemed to relax. He looked so pathetic, I nearly laughed out loud. Mr. Cool, wagging his tail at me just so I'd go easy on him. Anyway, I went, which made Mum pleased. I had a couple of beers, my first since the accident. The three of us sat and watched. It was almost like normal sometimes. We even laughed at a couple of the gross out bits. That Brittany, Ash said when we were leaving, you don't want to take any notice of her. I shrugged. Vince wanted to know who Brittany was, of course. He always does when he hears about some new chick. I walked home. I'm still not interested in driving. I slept maybe 5 hours, then I stared at the ceiling and thought about the girl in that magazine article. Tara. Yeah, there was something different. I was different. How long, how much, I didn't even know what I wanted to ask. I couldn't put anything together. Something was missing. Ryan. Sunday morning at TKD, I'd coached the juniors again. That's great, a guy who must have been little Sonia's father told me at the end. Really appreciate the trouble you take. Greg gave me a nod, which is his way of saying brilliant. When I got home, Mum said, I rang victim support, Ryan, about your wanting to see Tara's mother. A thrush was making little runs on the lawn, sticking its beak in the ground, darting off in a new direction. Mum put an arm around my shoulders. They phoned back and said the gals will be at the hospital all day. You can go this afternoon if you want to. Yeah, I said, thanks. I didn't want to, but I had to. I ate a bit of lunch, nearly 10 days, getting on for 240 hours. How many hours and days would I give up from my life if that could mean it had never happened? I headed off for the hospital about 2 o'clock. Take the Subaru, mate, John told me. I started to tell him not to be so bloody thick that I never wanted to drive again. Instead, I drove so carefully to Central that 2 cars behind honked at me. I followed the polished-smelling corridor and stairs up to ICU. The Valerie woman was behind the desk. I've come to see Tara Gower's mother, I told her. She just nodded. I sat on the same chair I'd sat on 9 days before. I picked up the same magazine, something about fishing. I turned the pages and still didn't take in a word. She came after just 2 minutes. I had the magazine open at the same unread page. She was Mum's height, short haircut that showed her ears. You could tell she'd been cute once. Now she was exhausted and stretched tight and totally unstoppable. I stood up as she came towards me. Blue eyes, not her daughter's colour. Something I'd learned in biology skittered stupidly into my mind. The brown eye gene is dominant over blue. Ryan? She asked. I managed to nod. I waited for her to hit me, like I'd waited for her husband. Instead, she stood and just looked at me for a couple of seconds. Then she stepped forward and put her arms around me. I thought I'd been ready for anything except that. Next second, I'd flopped down in the chair. My hands were over my face, and once more I was blubbing and bawling like a little kid.